Hey everyone, welcome back to another Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian series review. Don't worry, I only have one more from Wave 2 to review after this. You don't have to hear me say this till Wave 3 ships in September. Today we're taking a look at the new Spiclypeus. This figure retails for $49.99 and you can order it directly from Creative Beast Studios. And if you're outside the US, this figure will be available very shortly from Everything Dinosaur. And I'll leave a link to both those sites in the description of this video. Surprisingly, this figure was one of the last ones I added to my pre-order right before Wave 2 shipped. I added this one and the Ava Ceratops, and I'm really happy I did. This figure turned out beautifully, but we'll get into that a little bit later on in the review. So let's just take a quick look at the packaging. It comes in the standard Beast of Mesozoic packaging we've been seeing since the Raptor series. Got the Beast of Mesozoic logo up here, decked out in red foil trim. Got some beautiful artwork of the Spiclypeus on the front right here. It's rubbing its horns up against a log, very similar to a deer. And then turning the box over to the side, you got the logo again with the silhouette of the Triceratops. On the back of the box, you have a checklist for all the figures available in Wave 2. You got the same artwork with some facts about Spiclypeus, and then pulling the sleeve back, you can see the rest of the figures. And just like every figure in this wave, you got a nice collector card with that beautiful artwork with the facts on the back of the card. So enough about the packaging. Let's take a closer look at Judith. So let's start with this 360-degree view of the Spiclypeus. This is a beautifully painted figure from head to toe. Love how the color scheme came out on this figure. Now, just like most figures in the series, the pattern is based off real-life reptiles and amphibians. And the pattern on this figure is loosely, and I do mean loosely, based off the baby leopard gecko. Have no idea where that bright blue is coming from, but it does have a nice splash of color to break up all that bright orange and black. And it's just a really, really nice looking figure. Just love how the head came out. Love the horns and ornamentation, especially that little splash of blue on the tips. And you can see with that 19 points of articulation, you can get these figures in some pretty fun poses. Got this little Spiclypeus in a resting pose. And let's just do a couple quick measurements. This figure is 10.5 inches long from the tip of the beak to the tip of the tail, and about 4.5 inches tall to the top of the frill. So Spiclypeus in real life is estimated to be between 15 and 20 feet long. So I'll put this figure somewhere in the 118 to the 122 scale range. Alright, let's zoom and take a look at some of the finer details on this figure, starting with this gorgeous head sculpt. All the heads in this series have come out absolutely beautiful, and this Spiclypeus is no exception. Love the baby blue eyes. Every time I see it, I love blue eyes on dinosaur figures. I think it just adds a lot of personality to the sculpt. You can see there is a glossy coat over there to give the eye that wet look. And then going down to the beak, you can see the beak is nicely sculpted. The nostril is right here. It's kind of obscured by that black paint. The nose horn and brow horns are decked out with a tip of blue paint. I think that looks really, really nice. And open the mouth up, you can see there's a nice gloss coat in there to give it that wet look. And the cool thing about this figure is you can really, really open the mouth wide, and you can actually get a good look at how the teeth are painted in this figure. It's kind of tough to see on most of the figures because the mouths don't open up this wide, and you can see the tongue sculpted in, and all the teeth on the upper and lower jaw are nicely painted. And let's just pop his jaw back into place. And you can see all the ornamentation on the frill is nicely textured. All that is tipped in blue paint. Just love all the scale detail on the frill. Just beautifully, beautifully done. And then going down to the neck, you get a nice big splash of bright blue paint to break up all that black and orange. And then let me just zoom out a little bit. On the back, you see the main back of the figure is mostly black paint, but you have some bright red markings and bright blue markings over the hips to add some diversity to that color. Main body is mostly orange and yellows. Going down to the front feet, you can see the toe claws are tipped in glossy brown paint. Turn the figure over, you can see the underside is a nice cream color. You get some nice detail on the bottom of the feet as well. Going down to the hind legs, you can see some red markings mixed in with that black paint. And you get nice transitions of yellow and oranges along the hind feet. And you got the back claws are also done in that glossy brown paint. And then getting down to the tail, like I said, the tail is a very, very bright orange color with these nice black markings and a little bit of black on the tail tip. Like I said, very reminiscent of the carrot tail leopard gecko morph. So yeah, a really, really well done and well painted figure. I gotta say, I feel like the paint patterns on these Wave 2 figures look a lot better than most of the figures from Wave 1. And I'm not knocking the paint at all. I think all these figures are just really well done, but some of these paint schemes are a notch above the others. Moving on to articulation, these figures do have 19 points of articulation, so let's start with the head. We already did the mouth. You want to open it up about that far so it doesn't look like you're dislocating the jaw of this animal. Then on the back of the head, you have some nice rotation and a little bit of side-to-side movement. And then going down to the base of the neck, you do get some nice upward movement. And if you see right here, you can see the joint starting to pop out. You can get some nice downward movement on that joint. And then look at the figure from the front. With those two joints working together, you get some nice side-to-side movement. Going down to the front arms, they can move forwards and backwards, and they can also have a little bit of outward movement. You get about 90 degrees of bend at the elbow, some pivot and rotation on those front feet, and then going to the midpoint of the body, you can actually push this joint up to get to lower the hips a little bit, and then you can push it back in to line the back up. You get some nice side-to-side movement and a little bit of tiltage. And then going down to the hind legs, they can move backwards, they can move forwards. Actually, they can go pretty much 360 degrees if you wanted to. And then you get just under 9 degrees of bend at the knee. Then at the ankle, you get a little bit of forwards and backwards movement, and you actually can rotate them at the joint. Same thing on the knees. All these joints are pretty much ball joints, and then same thing with the bottom feet. You can rotate and tilt it out a little bit. And then going down to the tail, you can go up, down, side to side. Tails come unattached because they heat them up with a little bit of water and pop them over that ball joint. But I just want to point out one thing on the paint scheme with this figure. When I got this figure in, it was insanely tight, especially on the hips right here. I don't think the paint was fully dry when this figure was assembled. So when I finally got this joint worked, you can see how the paint came off on the hips right here, a little bit on the back and over here. Same thing with the neck joint. Let me see if I can expose it a little bit more. It's kind of tough to see, but yeah, there was definitely some wet paint that dried when this figure was assembled. Not a big deal. I can easily touch this up with like a black Sharpie or something just to make it a little bit better. But yes, sometimes that happens with these figures. They're not dry when they assemble them, and then they're a pain to get the articulation going. All right, moving on with comparisons. First up, here it is with Dennis Nedry from the Jurassic World line. And next up, I'm surprised I did not take any of these out for the Wave 2 reviews. Here it is with the old Rosaurus, the Rachosaurus. These, back in the day, in the late 90s, were articulated dinosaur figures. They were good at the time, but they are really fragile. The joints break really easily, and they are always very, very loose on these figures, but still pretty cool to see how much, toy technology has evolved over the years. And here it is with the Mattel Triceratops. And let's take out another Triceratops figure. Here it is with the Safari Limited Triceratops. And here it is with the PNSO Tyrannosaurus Rex. And here it is with its wave mate, the Ionosaurus. Now, it looks like these two figures share the same exact body mold. That's not necessarily the case. They share most of the parts. Obviously, the head's a difference. And the parts that they do share are the legs, the hip section, and the tail. The different parts is the different type of neck and front body portion. And I feel like this body type right here that the Spiclypeus has a little bit better range of motion. I just like the cut better around the hips. It allows for a lot more up and down hip movement than it does on the Ionosaurus body. I think the Ionosaurus shares it with the Monoclonius Avaceratops and probably a couple of the figures. And I think the neck joint on the Spiclypeus is a little bit better. You can get some better downward movement than on the Ionosaurus. I just feel like the neck joint is too short. So yeah, that is just a couple of differences. They all don't share the same exact parts. So it's nice to see the variety that went into this series. And lastly, here it is, one of the big boys from Wave 2. Here it is with the adult Centrosaurus, and currently the smallest figure in the series until the Protoceratops and Psittacosaurus in their 1/18th scale come out. So yeah, you can see a nice variety of sizes in this series. So final thoughts on the Spiclypeus, another beautiful figure in a series full of beautiful figures. And the coolest part is this is our first figure of this dinosaur. That always earns it bonus points in my eyes. And like I said at the beginning of the review, this figure can be purchased directly from Creative Beast Studios, or if you're outside the US, Everything Dinosaur will be stocking these very soon. Links to both those sites is posted in the description below. So that will do it for the review. Just have one more figure from this series to do, and that is the Ava Ceratops. Then I'll be taking a break from this series until Wave 3 ships in September. Still got a couple more collect day. Got new PNS was coming in. New Jurassic World stuff should be hitting relatively soon, so be on the lookout for all those reviews in the near future. And as always, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, show your support by hitting that subscription button just below the video. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously, and it's greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.